now we know we use our cameras as a communication tool every single day.
You can grow an audience by these things that you post, but you connect with your audience in stories. Like that is where the connection happens.
How has video impacted your business? Friends, what's up? Katie Day with my co-host Tim Macy here with another episode of the Real Estate Video Blueprint Podcast. And I am very excited to welcome this week's guest. She is someone that I have known for a while, followed for a while as well, and needs no introduction. She is the Queen of Long Beach, Barb. What's going on, girl?
Oh, thank you, Katie. That's so kind of you. I love being the Queen of Long Beach. I'll take that title all day long.
I'm excited for the pod because if it is 20% as entertaining as our pre-pod conversation has been, we are in for a treat. So I'm ready. Let's go. Let's dive in.
We should record the pre-show stuff, but not showing record. No. And that would be the hook because we're far funnier before we start recording, and then the cameras turn on.
I don't know. I'm pretty confident that we'll have some entertaining conversation.
We'd have to start a Patreon for the access to the pre-record.
Oh yeah.
Is Patreon like clean OnlyFans?
Yeah, I was gonna say OnlyFans, but I'm like, no, Patreon. That's what it is. Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Or noted. I could start another OnlyFans.
All right. So Barb, for those that may not know you, who are you?
Who am I? Well, I'm the Queen of Long Beach. I love that title. So I am based out of Southern California, obviously born and raised in Long Beach. I always say born, raised, and brokered in Long Beach. So I am a real estate broker. I own an independent boutique brokerage with my incredible husband. I have been in the business going on 23 years. And have served lots of different roles and seen a lot of different facets of this industry, from sales to leadership to volunteer leadership within our associations, to speaking and training and development and education, which is where I live most of the time now. And then even taking now my sales background and expertise and everything that I've built and taking it to stages outside of the real estate industry, which has been really fun and exciting to understand that we do a lot of things right in this business, and there's a lot of other industries that don't, and they don't know how to do what we kind of do naturally. And that's kind of been like an ever evolving thing for me to realize. You think everybody knows how to do sales, and then you realize they don't know how to do sales.
Well, I think, here we go, Katie. This is how we're going to start.
Tim texts me and he's like, okay,
you go first. I go first.
And then he just completely hops right in after. He's like, you go.
Sometimes people say something and I have to jump in. And the thing that was said was how other industries don't do it as well. And I think the reason is the level of connection it takes to get someone to raise their hand and say, help me buy a house is a lot harder of a connection to make than to say, have somebody raise their hand and say, sell me a car. Like it's just such a bigger life event that the amount of connection, the amount of skills you need to have in this industry I think it's a lot more than other ones.
It's very interesting you say that because it is so true, right? When you talk to other people in other industries that are even in consumer-based facing businesses. So you think, oh, well, we're in a consumer-facing business. And then there's other people like insurance and attorneys and financial advisors that are as well. And you think everyone knows how to do this business. Katie mentioned it earlier. My passion's relationships. And that's all I've done my entire career. And you think everyone knows and everyone understands. And everyone understands that you have to actually have a system behind this. And you have to have a plan for connection and all of that, and really deepen these relationships that lead to trust. And we all know trust leads to business. And they don't. It's like a shocking conversation to have with them. So I agree with you. I think we have to work really, really hard for what we do. And the fact that people only do it with us once every 10 years, let's say at this point. I used to be able to say 6 or 7, and now it's more like 10. And so that's a big deal to keep them around and keep that relationship around. And you got to work really hard to make sure they don't forget you and stay connected.
I'm really glad that Tim interrupted me because he kind of took the conversation down in different paths, and now it's weird for me to ask my question that I was going to ask before.
No, it's not.
So what I would say is, having been in the industry, you said for a little while,
Thank you for not aging me.
That's what I was like. You've seen a lot, right? And you've seen a lot of evolution. And so one of the things that I'd like to kind of dig into is how has video impacted your business? Because I know that it's been something that's huge for you in, one-to-one conversation, in one-to-many, in, getting speaking gigs. Like it's a significant portion of your business today. How do you think that's evolved over the years?
Well, I think now it's a non-negotiable. It used to be a nice to have. It used to be if you wanted a bucket of digital marketing to fill your, pipeline, okay, you could apply an action plan and you could succeed. But I feel like now it's a non-negotiable. So how I've seen it evolve, to start there, is, I remember back probably 10 years ago when I started getting involved in social media, and that started including posting pictures and then of course posting videos. And then now we use our cameras as a communication tool every single day, whether it's on stories, whether it's sending, videos, FaceTime, Zoom, whatever. I mean, we literally communicate with our phones via video. I do, at least, more than I do actually talking through the speaker to another human. And I think that, back years ago, it was like an extra add-on. And now I've seen it develop to the point where agents need to understand that, I live in a referral and relationship world. When you are referred to someone, when someone's referred to you, they're going to look you up immediately. Like probably while they're on the phone with the friend that's giving them the referral, or
who is this? Googling, on Instagram,
who they are. And then they're going to want to find your digital and social footprint. And if that digital and social footprint does not include some aspect of video, and I can actually get a feeling for who you are and your personality, you're going to lose over someone that does. I'm not going to say you're not going to get the business, but I believe you're going to lose over someone that does. And so how that's affected my career was getting active on stories. Getting active on stories is what changed the trajectory of my career and now my speaking career. And what I realized is, every obviously real estate professional knows, if you are not doing lead generation every day, if you are not having conversations every single day with people, with humans, I don't care if they're past clients, current clients, future clients, strangers, if you are not having conversations every single day, you're not working, right? And so because I do business by relationship, I don't knock on doors, and I don't cold call, and I don't do internet leads. I don't do any of that. I never have. The only way I know how to do business is by building relationships and creating connection. And so that requires me to text, call, something with my clients every day, right? Or my leads or my pipeline. So once I realized the power of stories, and once I realized that I now can go to stories and broadcast a message every day, like literally talk to everyone that follows me, and then wait for them to talk back, and then have one-on-one conversations that I never could have had if I had called them and left a voicemail, that was a game changer for me. Once I actually started talking to my camera, forward facing, and people started responding, it was like, oh my goodness, this works. And then that is what I've done consistently through all the different streams of income that I've developed over the past couple of years.
No, that's completely true. And like you said, it shows who you are. It creates that connection. I actually, when you brought that up, I looked in my phone to search like our first photos together. And so we met in October of 2021.
Really? I feel like it's been longer than that.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, is like, I feel like I knew you. And so what I'm pulling up is a picture of my friend Paige, Renee, you, Shannon, me, Giselle, and Chelsea, and we all went to dinner in Vegas.
Oh,
you weren't invited, Tim.
Tim's like, first time.
And that was the first time we met. It was the first time I had met Chelsea. It was the first time I had met you. And it's just funny because like I feel as if I've known you way longer, and it's because of the connection that we created from social media and seeing each other's stories and just spending time together online, which is now carried over into real life as well as online.
Yeah. Well, I'll take that a step further. And I always tell this story when I'm trying to help people understand the impact of social media and video and talking to other humans. And that at the end of the day, every social media account in the DMs, maybe not now with AI and bots, but traditionally, most of the accounts you're talking to every day are humans on the other side. Like there is a person sitting there having this conversation with you. And I always use this example when people tell me social media is a waste of time, stories is a waste of time, talking to your camera every day and not knowing who's on the other side is a waste of time. I always push back and say, you mentioned Chelsea. Chelsea Pites and I met on Snapchat. I don't even know how long ago. And she would post her daily little marketing real estate tips. And I became obsessed with her. I became obsessed with her child. I became obsessed with her husband. I knew nothing about her except for I loved the way she showed up online. I loved her personality. I loved her energy. One day I got the courage to DM her. Magically, she responded.
Yeah.
That relationship obviously went over to Instagram as Snapchat winded down, or at least for us adults winded down. But you mentioned seeing each other for the first time. And I was at an Inman event, I think 2015 or 16 at the old Hilton in San Francisco. And I came downstairs from the elevator and I saw her across the lobby, and we had never met in real life. I don't think we had ever even talked on the phone in real life. We had never even talked past the DMs. And I went running for her, like obnoxiously fangirling running. And we have this photo that is still goes in every one of my presentations about social media. And she looks horrified because I've like basically attacked her in the lobby of the Hilton. But the reason I tell that story is that relationship started on Snapchat through video and through messaging each other and sharing our lives and our digital life. And now we're best friends and live and do life together. And it all started from Snapchat. And so when people tell me it's a waste of time, and I'm like, think again, you have no idea the relationships you're developing, and you have no idea the people that are watching. You have no idea how many people are actually paying attention to what you're doing and saying. You just have to have the courage to show up every day and be human, be you, be real, be authentic, and more doors will open than you ever could imagine.
I was going to make the joke of, she was horrified at that first meeting, and now you've just continued to insert yourself into her life.
Yeah. And now she has no choice.
She has no choice at this point.
She has no choice. At this point, it's we're blood sisters. There's no choice. In fact, she called me while we're recording. It just popped up. So there you go. Hi, Chelsea.
Yeah. I love it. You just kind of, I think you've framed it well, where, your feed can grow an audience. You can grow an audience by these things that you post, but you connect with your audience in stories. Like that is where the connection happens. And it's so many times like I bump into people and nobody asks me about things I've posted in my feed. They always are bringing up stuff I post in my stories. The guy that is working on my house was like, "Oh, I saw you work out with so-and-so. I was at something else." And somebody was like, "Oh, how's the grass doing?" Like those are all things that I post about in my stories, is where they're connecting and asking me about things. And so it's such a huge miss for people not to be connecting in stories. So I love the way you frame that.
Yeah, stories for me is a daily occurrence. I talk to people every day in it. I love it. I love that it's real life. I love that it's your, document your day, behind the scenes, all the things. But to your point of people talking to you about it, like, my husband isn't as active on stories as I am, but people will see. I always call him the mayor of Vons because he's the mayor of our grocery store, because he does all his business in the grocery store. And people will come up to him, like friends of ours, and they'll make a comment about something I shared on stories. Like, and it starts conversations for him too, because
he loves it, right? I'm sure he just loves hearing about.
Oh yeah, he does. He loves it. But he's the co-star in my stories. I always say he's my co-star. Yeah. But when you think about these stories, conversations, and how powerful they are, I always go back to a principle I used to teach forever ago in like basic social media 101, was that people come for the personal and then they hear the business. And so to your point, Tim, this is how I always described it. Like, no one's going to engage with my just listed or just sold post. I don't care if it's in the feed or on stories. Okay. Not going to happen. But what is going to happen is if I post tonight a bottle of wine that my husband and I are drinking, right? I'm going to get a ton of engagement on, "Oh my God, what is that wine? Do you like it? It's my favorite too." We're going to have conversations about wine because it's a personal connection point. And then tomorrow morning, when I share the first time home buyer tip or the just listed or the just sold, what I love about stories is because everyone engaged with that personal post or that personal story, they're going to see the business the next morning, because we all know here that's how the algorithm works. They're never going to say a word about the real estate, but they're going to know and remember that we're in real estate because it's going to show up in their feed only because I had the courage to share something personal the night before. And if agents would understand that if you can book in this personal with mixing in the business, that's how you softly remind them, "I'm here. This is what I do. I'm good at what I do. I'm selling houses. I'm busy, but here's a lot of my personal life that you're actually going to care about."
So sharing your personal life, you over the years have shared the wine and shared the grocery store and things like that. But more recently, you've taken a more vulnerable approach. I can't even say the words. I'm so bad at emotions. I can't even say vulnerable approach.
No need to.
Katie threw up in her mouth when she said emotions.
Well, that's why I was having difficulty saying the words. For anyone that knows me, they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But you have been more vulnerable on social media, and it's something that, you know, I think was a surprise to you, of you sharing your story and the support and messages and opportunity. Like, and I know you weren't expecting opportunities, but opportunities and all of the stuff that has come from that. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of the surprise you had on the impact that's had, you know?
So what Katie's talking about, I'm not afraid to share it, is I've had a very public hair loss journey that I've suffered with the last, 3 to 5 years. And I made a very courageous decision a couple years ago when the writing was on the wall that my hair was not growing back and was not going to come back. And I made the decision to wear human hair wigs full time and come out public about it. And my whole intention for that was that I wanted to help another female along this journey, that I know if I am 42 years old going through this, I'm not the only human on the planet who's got a hair loss issue that's caused by genetics and health issues. And that's why I initially did it. And to your point, Katie, the results and what's happened since in the last 3 years has been, you're very correct to say, overwhelming and life-changing. And so from that perspective, I know now what it is. It's that humans want to relate to someone else. And there's so much fakeness on social media, and there's so much I'm perfect and never have a bad day. When someone does show up and admit they're human and real and they have vulnerabilities, there's that word that you can't say, and insecurities, and they're not afraid to admit that they're human, turns out that's really sexy. And those are the comments that show up in my DMs every single day. Thank you for being real. Thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for showing me it's okay to have emotions and be human. And I know I can trust you. And that's the thing that I wish every salesperson would understand. But the more human you are, the more relatable you are. Relatability leads to trust. And you need people to trust you. And people are going to trust you when you show up real and authentic. They are not going to trust the AI created version of you, whether that's in your comments, copy, or as a human. But and it's transformational.
I love that. Was amazing. I think the one word that I didn't hear you say, I usually have like feedback and bounce up, but you just like nailed the whole thing of how being authentic can make such an impact on others, and how people are craving it. I think it's such a powerful piece that a lot of our agents are just missing, and I don't know how to frame it the right way for them to get it, but I think you did that really well. The one word though I think is missing is approachable. And when I say that, I mean, like, we have people that have these massive followings because of their great real estate content, and they're getting no DMs for business because all it is this big success story reel. And that's not approachable. And so when you're vulnerable and you're authentic and you're all this stuff, and people are DMing you about what you have going on in your life, like, they're also going to DM you about real estate. It just makes you so much more approachable when you do that. And honestly, we talk about know, like, and trust and all that fun stuff. Like, that is the baseline you need to have. But a big hurdle I think people don't realize they have is approachable. And you are super approachable with the content that you put out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I love that word, and I love that concept. And you're absolutely correct. The number one feedback I get when I step off a stage or when I see someone at a conference for the first time is, you are the exact same. Oh my God, you're the exact same as you are on social media. And I always make a joke. Well, I might look different today because it depends on what piece of hair I'm wearing. But the personality and who you see and what you see in the hallways is the same person that you're going to see on social media. And I think what you're hitting on, Tim, is so important, because here's how I view it. Again, people are only going to buy and sell real estate once every God knows how many years. They don't have referrals every day for you. So how else are you going to stay relevant in their life? If you are just shoving, just listed, just sold, under contract, look at me, here's some market stats that no one cares about. One of the things I share in my keynotes, and it rubs some real estate people the wrong way, but I don't really care. It's the only person that cares about your just listed and just sold post are the people that are buying and selling it, period. Right? Like, once in a while, yeah, you want to show that you've got listings and you're doing your job and all the things. But frankly, there's other ways to do that. When you show up every day as a human and you talk about your dog and your food and your lunch and what you're doing all day long, people are like, I only want to talk about real estate on my social media. Okay, that's fine. Then show up and actually show what you're doing, like the real behind the scenes of what you're actually doing, that you're a human who sells real estate. You're not a robot.
Yeah.
And if agents would understand that it creates this relatability and this trust, and that there are so many people in my DMs who constantly tell us, I'm not ready to buy, but when I do, you're the only people I'm calling. And then they keep talking to us and keep talking to us and keep talking to us. And I know when they're ready to buy, they're going to talk to us. You're not going to make that happen if you don't remain top of mind. And you don't remain top of mind by just putting real estate marketing in front of people. If agents think that is how you build a business in real estate in 2025, which we're going into, you're crazy.
No, as Tim said, I would agree with as well. The stories are what generate.
Like Katie never agrees with me, which is insane.
You said earlier that like you're so right to him. I was like, oh, that's even worse than emotions. But the story,
worst. Being sandwiched in between you two is tough, man.
It's we're a tough crowd. The stories though are, in my opinion, what generates the most amount of conversation, right? And so when we look at it from, even if you take everything else that you've said away, if you look at it from how can your stuff in your feed show up higher on other people's feeds, it's by creating stories and creating conversations and having meaningful conversations, because Instagram takes that and throws it into their algorithm. And that is then when people see your content.
Yep. So. If they're not engaging with you, if they're not talking to you, you're going to get buried at the bottom of their algorithm. You're not even going to show up. And then the content, we wonder why you don't get likes and comments. And then there's this whole virality conversation, which in real estate, in my opinion, is a waste of time, because you get 2 million views. Good for you. Do you know 2 million people in your city? I don't think so.
Does your city even have 2 million people?
So therefore you can broadcast yourself to people in, I don't know, New York and London, and you live on the West Coast. And what good is that going to do? So, these agents who are just trying to go viral on Reels and get all these followers, to your point earlier, they have all these followers and they're not getting any conversations. It's also probably because some of the wrong people are following them.
Boom.
I will say too, I get a lot of DMs from people on my stories. And I don't really feel like I know them because they're not posting on their stories. And so we encourage our agents to actually go through, their stories up at the top, kind of program their algorithm, because a lot of us have stuff filled with other agents. And it's like, swipe past the agents, start engaging with your local audience stories, start DMing them based on what they posted about. And that's a great way to connect with them. But you lose so much of the connection if you're not posting things that they can DM you about. Right? It's just a one-way street. So I see people come up to me all the time and they're like, hey, like I saw the grass, I saw the move. How are things going? Like, I don't know who they are because they're not giving me content to engage with and follow. And so I know we're hammering on stories, but it goes down in the DMs. Like there's so much stuff that happens based on stories. And I think it's a worthwhile topic to spend the time on.
Well, I also think stories are for people that are nervous about video and filming and everything else. Like, hey, the beauty of stories is it goes away in 24 hours. It's not living there forever. I mean, you can still see it. It's in your archives, but like the other humans are only seeing it for 24 hours. If it's completely awful, delete it. You can record it 15 times. They're short. You can't talk forever. Like there's so many benefits to starting there in stories. And then, I have I'm sure you guys you mentioned Giselle earlier and she's a big no filter girl. I'm the complete opposite. I'm like, if putting a filter on makes you feel better about showing up on social media, I'd rather you show up on social media with a filter than not show up on social media at all. So there's Barb's take on filters. Like I've never had somebody walk up to me and be like, wow, your skin looks really like you don't look like that. I've never had anybody say that to me. Okay. So we're not like distorting our faces, but I go back to do what makes you comfortable. So you'll actually start doing the video content and you'll actually start talking to people. And I feel like when you just test this out and do 30, 45 seconds, a minute on stories, then you get confident enough to be able to do long form video and scripts and, notes and like do more professional type content, reels and all of that. Starting out on stories is how you gain the confidence to do all the other things, but you got to start somewhere, and you got to use video or a bunch of pictures. It might get some engagement, but it's not going to get engagement like talking to the camera.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is the stories for me have helped me to like be more succinct with what I'm going to say, and things like that, because it's a 15-second clip, or a 30-second clip, right? As opposed to when you're trying to do a long form or something like that, and talking directly to the camera. So that's certainly been helpful, I think, in my mind for creating better video content.
It works.
I love it. What direction do you want to go, Tim?
You're always picking on me. I feel like there's like half our audience that's like, oh, well, they just stop bugging each other, and the other half that likes it. And I don't know. We'll
and I don't know if it's good or bad. Yeah.
But moving on from stories, because I think we have kind of really hit that pretty hard. Thinking about making content for an audience that generates those relationships. Let's talk about the feed. Like what content do you love to see that agents are doing right now in the feed?
So content in the feed needs to be evergreen. It needs to be relevant to what's going on, but it needs to be something that you are going to be okay with someone coming back to, months from now, right? Because someone might meet you and go into your feed and start scrolling. So I do think there needs to be some real estate content in there, right? Because you want to show up as a professional real estate agent that actually sells real estate. It just can't be all of the content. I think it's like 90-10. I think 90% should be you as a human, and 10% should be when I say real estate content, I mean specifically I'm talking like hardcore, just listed, just sold, under like stuff that's very real estate marketing specific. But the rest of your feed, I think people, they got to understand that they can be really creative. Like, there is not a real estate agent on the planet, if they post a closing story with a cute picture of a family and them with the keys or the sign, right? Or popping the champagne, and then tell the story of all the challenges they helped that family get through to actually get that home closed. Like, that's the kind of real estate marketing that I think lives forever in the feed. Anytime you can position yourself as a human who helps people, but also I hate to use the word expert because no agent should use the word expert because none of us are experts, but a really top-notch professional problem solver in our industry. Sorry, that was my risk management brain turning on. Anytime you can position yourself as a really cool person, plus you're sharing the stories of how you've helped people get through these challenges in real estate. And then I believe your content in the feed has to also be personal. You have to have some stuff in there where, okay, let's just say I get referred to you and you haven't posted on your stories for the day, or you took a day off. It's okay to take a day off from stories. But I want to see who you are. Now I'm going to go to your feed. And if everything I see is houses, I don't know anything about who you are. So I believe in your feed. I've followed this for pretty much my entire career on social media. I call it a brand menu. Like, what is your personal brand? Because your personal brand is more than real estate breaking news. Like, what is your personal brand? Who are you? What do you do in your spare time? What groups are you involved in? What do you do with your family? Do you travel? Do you have children? Do you have dogs? Do you go to sporting events? Do you have a favorite music? You're at concerts all the time. Like, who are you in your personal life? If you mix that and sprinkle in I'm a successful agent, you win in my book, because you want that consumer to go to your page and be like, oh my gosh, Katie has 2 kids. Oh, Katie's involved in the community in Houston. Oh, Katie sells a lot of real estate. She has a team. She's a leader in the industry. For me, you go to my page and you're like, oh my God, she volunteers a lot in this industry. She must really know what she's doing. My clients think I'm the president of the freaking United States of Realtors. I'm calling it the United States of Realtors, so no one's ever going to claim Barb said she's the president of blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm the president of the United States of Realtors. That doesn't exist. But my clients think that. They truly think I run the real estate world. Why? Because I post that I'm involved on social media. They interpret it the way they want to interpret it. Your clients will think you're the mayor of your city and that you do all the real estate in the city. And you're also a cool person if you post that way. But if it's just pictures of houses, they're going to go mute on you and they're going to unfollow because they're going to get tired of seeing it.
And the thing that I like that you said is, you got to have 90% human, 10% real estate. And I think another way to think about that is like you have to humanize your real estate content and
Yes.
stop thinking like a agent trying to sell somebody a house all the time when you're posting your greatest ever listing. I think we just have to figure out how to humanize the real estate content so people actually want to watch it.
Agreed. And if you're gonna post real estate content, make it human. Like if you're gonna post pictures of houses, make them really cool houses. Like make them something people haven't seen before. Tell the story behind the listing. Tell the story behind the buyer. Everyone has seen the front of a 4-bedroom, 2-story home in wherever you live. Everyone has seen one of those. Is there a really cool kitchen? Is there a really cool backyard? Is there a really cool wine fridge? And you love wine and that connects to your brand, my brand, right? Like
we know, Barb, we know.
What is something cool about this house or this home that makes it unique and makes it something that you want to live on your feed? I think is humanizing it's everything.
And we've always kind of laughed at the business pages because nobody really follows a business page. But what we do have now is this interesting collab feature and how you can use it where you can go post all of the boring stuff that you have to post because you've got to post the just listed. You have to run an ad behind, right? Go post all that stuff on your real estate, move me to text, whatever page.
Yes.
And then go do something super dope in a real estate post and, have it on your personal collabed with your real estate page. And I think that collab feature definitely opens up a lot different ways to think about things for sure.
Well, and it opens up the fact that also when you look at it, a consumer looks at it, it's like, oh, this is Katie and her real estate company or team. And that is a completely different perception from the viewer than just Katie's just talking about real estate all day long.
So with that being said, though, Tim, there's people that I follow that like say it's Tim Macy and then it's like the Tim Macy team.
Yeah.
I like the collab feature because it's one post, right? And so I'm only seeing it once. But like, how often are you seeing stuff where you're just like, my God, like, did Barb collab 17 different pages on this post? Like, that's.
I know. That is another rabbit hole we should probably go down.
Because that's like for me, I'm just like, okay, Barb, like we know that like Barbette's speaker, Barbette's broker, Barbette's friend, like cool, you have 4 different accounts. Like, I don't know.
I have a personal opinion about secondary accounts. My personal opinion is you only need a secondary account if you have a company or team, period.
Yeah.
If you are a solo real estate agent, you do not need 2 separate accounts. Now you could collab with your brokerage's account or with your team's account or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you're talking to Mary Smith, who works all by herself and works for a large national franchise where it wouldn't make sense to collab with her office account, then you are a human who sells real estate. You are not a real estate human who sells humans. You're let's
hope not.
That was coming out good and that didn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, that ended oddly.
But like you guys both have teams and companies, and so that's completely different. If you're responsible for other agents in some capacity, brokerage or team, then I believe in a secondary account. If you are I do never believed in Katie Day Real Estate, Katie Day Human, Katie Day Mom, all the, evocations of Katie. That is a waste of time. No one's going to pay attention to that.
But it was interesting. I was having a conversation with, I probably shouldn't say their name, but it probably rhymes with Chad McGrowlam. And he was talking about how
he has terrible hair though. Chad has terrible hair.
Yeah, Chad has terrible hair. He was talking about how like his channel thrives on having the absolute best houses on his channel, and all these people are coming to him to list their house because they want to be on his channel. And like not every house is on there, because if you start putting every house on there, you've now pivoted the value of your channel to being for the houses you're selling and no longer for the audience. Mm-hmm. And if the channel's there for the audience, it should only be the best stuff for the audience. And I think that's why if you have some other page that you can put kind of everything on, because you've got to put everything on, you may have to run an ad on it. You may have to do these other things on it. I do think it's kind of important to have some other page where maybe you can do that. So you can make sure you just put your best stuff on your page where it is there to serve your audience, not serve your business, because I think if you serve your audience with your social media, it will serve your business.
Yes.
And making sure you don't flip those things around isn't the most straightforward thing. I'm sure people are listening to what I'm saying right now and kind of scratching their head, but
I do that.
your page that you want to grow should be there to serve your audience. And if it does that, it will serve your clients.
And I'm hearing what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you. Maybe I guess now that I'm thinking through, Katie's hating this because I'm agreeing with him, and she's like, "Dang it, this girl, where'd we get her from?"
Yeah.
But you're right. In today's day and age, with the amount of, I guess in my market, I don't really have to run ads behind properties because they sell in 25 seconds, still with 10 offers. But I get what you're saying. I guess I could, as we transition into different markets, and property marketing needs to be bolstered up in order to do what our listing agreement says, that we're going to make every effort to get the home sold, and competition and everything else. You're right. I could see a world where you do need that secondary page for specifically the properties. But yes, please don't collaborate with every single home you've ever listed onto your personal page.
Well, because, you walk at your seller's like, well, where's my video?
Yeah.
Like, did you do the video? Where'd you put it? Where is it? And I think having a place for that's.
Yeah, no, that's actually a flip on my mantra that I've always had, but you're probably right.
I've always had the same mantra. I think the collab feature has changed that for me, because now we have this avenue to do that.
Yeah.
Before, it's like, you have a Facebook business page, you post all the stuff on it, you post all the good stuff on your personal page, right?
Yeah.
Like there never really was much of a need for an Instagram business page, but since you have this collab feature, I think there's something to it now. I think you can, maybe.
Maybe you're changing my mind.
Instead of telling him that you're right, you could be like, that's not completely incorrect.
There you go. That's not completely incorrect. Let's make Katie feel happy.
Like,
Katie, when is your passive aggressive workshop coming out?
Every day, baby. Every day.
I would say this podcast.
It's Tim. It's you living as a business partner to me
That's
on
true.
a daily basis, bro.
Yeah. I love it.
On a daily basis. No, I like when people have differing opinions, and like we can kind of talk through these things, because it's like, I think that there isn't always a completely this is the right way and this is the wrong way. There's lots of gray area in between, and so it's interesting as the platforms change how I mean, who knows if we even I would say what we view as right or wrong. Who even cares what we have to say? But like,
well, 2 years from now, there may be some new feature, and now what I just said is totally irrelevant. Like, it just changes so fast.
It really is true. Yeah, they're going to continue to evolve.
Well, one thing I do like is that we've had so many guests on this podcast. We look at what so many people are doing to generate business. Nobody does exactly the same. Right. So, and I think that's the trouble too. This was a little bit of our conversation when we were starting about people like looking at other agents and thinking that they're not doing well enough and all this other fun stuff. Like, the sooner you realize that there is no golden blueprint handbook that you can just follow that somebody else did that's going to work for you, that you have to find your own journey, that you have to listen to these different ways people are successful and figure out what your way is, the sooner you'll stop overthinking this stuff.
Mic drop. Sorry, Katie.
Well, but what is your take? I mean, we just talked about that, how agent perception of other agents.
Yeah. Oh, I could go on for days. I was sharing with them before we hopped on that, we're now in the season, we're at the end of the year, and we're in the season of every agent's going to start showing on social media. As we talk about social media, they're going to start talking about how many families they served and how many homes they sold and their GCI and their sales volume and la, 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 la. And this is the time of year where I know, and some of you may be the ones listening that are these humans. I know there's people out there who are going to start judging their success and their, do they belong in this industry over someone else's success? And I've always been a proponent my entire career. You cannot judge your level of success against any other agent. There's so many variables that you don't know. Are they posting their actual production? Or are they posting their team's production? Are they posting what they really sold or what they thought they were going to sell? Are they someone like me who, when my kids were younger, I didn't miss a 3:00 baseball game ever. I didn't care if a client needed me to list their home. I would be there at 5 or 6 o'clock. And if it didn't work for them, I didn't take the appointment. Not everyone does that with their families. What season and chapter of your life are you in that is not the same as a season and chapter someone else is in. Or brand new agents who come up to me all the time and are like, I never can do as much as you do. How do you do it all? I'm in chapter 23. You're in chapter 2. Like you cannot compare your chapter 2 in real estate to my chapter 23 or any of our collective chapters on this, podcast. So we're in that season where you're going to see people gloating on social media. And I am not against sharing your successes. Please don't think that's what I'm saying. I'm against others or you listening, comparing yourself to your success and your value as an agent to someone else's. Because maybe your goal was 10 deals this year and you did 10 and you crushed it. And then you see someone post that they did 45. That was their version of success. Yours is 10. It doesn't make you any less than, because you did less than someone else. And we're just in that season where it gets me all fired up.
It takes a while, I think, to be in that mindset. And it took me a while to get there, right? Especially having a team, because you see people posting numbers and then you look and you're like, oh, well, they have 45 team members. That's why they sold more homes than me, or why they sold less homes than me, or whatever it may be, right?
Mm-hmm. And 40% of their commission went to Zillow.
Thank you.
That, right?
Thank you.
So it's something that, like, for a very long time, especially in like coaching communities and like brokerage communities and stuff like that, I would see everyone else's numbers. I'm like, oh, I've got to sell more than Barb. I've got to sell more than Tim. Not hard to sell more than Tim, but you do that and you look at those as benchmarks. But like now, when we're creating goals, like I could care less what everyone else is doing. Like what's my team doing? How can I get them to sell more homes? How can I get them to hit those benchmarks that they want to hit? So that's what's, important these days for me.
I couldn't agree with you more. I say it time and time again. That's why I've never been one for like awards, top agent, blah, 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 all the things. I'm not saying they're not important. They've just never been for me, because at the end of the day, I care about two things. I've always cared about two things in my sales business. I have cared about how much money's in my bank account and what does my family think of me. That's it. That is the only two things I've ever cared about. Do enough business to keep money in my bank account and do what I want to do and live the life I want to live. Do I have goals? Of course, they're based on the budget we need to live our life, though. And what do my children and my family think of me? And if you excel in those two areas, in my opinion, you're extremely successful. Now, if you're not hitting the numbers you need to have those two things, or you're not hitting the numbers you need to survive, then that's a completely different conversation. But I used to always say, Katie, kind of what you just said. I used to always, because other teams in my office, huge teams doing all this production, but I also would always tell them, and true as I'm sitting here, I would have these conversations with some big time team leaders in my office. And I would say, I'll put my P&L up against yours any day. And what I mean by that is percentage of profit I kept. Yeah. So my numbers are not going to be anywhere near yours, but I probably kept a much larger percentage of profit because of how I chose to do business. Slower, less production, less output, less marketing, less buying leads, less 40%, all those things. But there's no right way. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. Those people are making a ton of money too and feeding their families. So there is no right way to do this business.
It's funny. When I got my real estate license, we were broke and we had just had our first daughter and like we had nothing. I was mowing like it was, definitely starting from zero. And when you're starting out, like that's all to align yourself, identify yourself with is how many houses did you sell, how much money's in the bank, and like that's it. And now that I've progressed to where I'm at now, which is like a lot further along, more and more when I look at people that are successful, like how much money they made is not what I look at. I'm looking at like what's their family life look like? Like how much time do they spend with their family? Oh man, look how much they do for others. Look at the impact they're making. Like the more successful I get, the more I realize how little that stuff matters, because there are a ton of public successes and private failures. And I think the more we can internalize like what success means for us there's this fine line by being inspired by the external to drive us to whatever, but without like internalizing somebody else's stuff as trying to make that our own. Not an easy thing to do, but I don't know, maybe there's one person, maybe Jeremy Applebaum's listening to this podcast and a light bulb goes off for him. I don't know, maybe somebody this reaches, and I hope it does, because that was a big moment for me when I realized it is far less about the financial metrics than we think it is.
I think this is a good moment to end the pod. No,
we all just stared at each other.
I think we're all in agreement on this. So I'm gonna just summarize. Barb, thank you so much for coming on today. I appreciate you sharing some of your story, and I think the vulnerability that you've shown. I was practicing that the entire time Tim was talking. The vulnerability that you've shown on social has been something that is definitely inspiring. One that, you know, you're sharing your journey, but I think it's inspiring for others to share theirs, you know, and to share things that may be going on in their lives as well. Cause you know, it's inspiring. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate
you are very welcome. I would end with, you know, I've had a lot of criticism in the past couple months, weeks. I shared another very public, awful thing that happened to me, and I cried on stories. And I'm going to end with telling you that it started 673 conversations. We'll just leave it at that. I'm not saying everyone needs to go cry on social media. I'm not saying everyone needs to have a really bad day, but 673 conversations was because I was real and vulnerable. Period. It had nothing to do with what I said. It was because I was real and vulnerable.
I love that. Barb, what are you doing in April?
What am I doing in April?
Yes.
Coming to Real Estate Video Blueprint, maybe. I don't know. That's just, I was like, let me track with this. What is going on in April? I don't even know if the event's in
Tim's
April.
Like, it's my birthday.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, we'll be excited.
I would love to come. Yeah.
At REVB, April 24th or 25th. We never plug the actual events that we do this podcast for on any show, but I don't know, something about
I feel honored.
Like plug it.
I feel honored.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks everybody. We'll see you on the next one.